or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Stumbling down the road with Bridgette Lynn Dolgoff as she carries stones, digs holes, and wheels her shovels on her way. This road is the real path. It is never easy and never clear, but always entertaining. This journey has not been a seated event, as Bridgette walks, runs, stumbles, carries, digs, drags, laughs, fights, sings, prays, dances, kicks, screams, and oftentimes falls.
We are here. I think we're here. Oh, welcome. It's Saturday, June 1st, 2019. I am sitting in for Bridgette as she's walking, running, stumbling, and carrying. Oh, that's too funny. Yes, okay. He must be here.
I are here.
My Saturday cohort.
And that wouldn't let me answer the phone properly, so I had to choose the hang up option and then go into Skype. And once I got in through Skype, I was okay. But the time snuck up on me. It's not supposed to be this time already. I got into a deep conversation this morning and figured out a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, what was the conversation about?
Tartaria.
Pardon me?
Tartaria and the Tartarian Empire.
And which and what and who is that?
Well, you see, it's the next game that I'm inventing to come out over the internet.
Oh.
And I figure that everybody loves all these role-playing games, and that if I can have an Empire game that people like to play, maybe I can become the Grand Poobah of the world and stop wars.
Well, that part I can handle, but oh my gosh, why would you want to be the Grand Poobah? Oh my gosh, isn't there enough? I mean, can you snap your fingers and rid all the leftovers of war and the annihilation we've been under all this time?
Yep, I can. You want to know how I can do it?
That would be a blessing.
But you see, if you don't believe in my new rewritten narrative, it wouldn't work. And you're a realist, so I can't convince you of doing anything that might be fun unless it's real fun.
Yeah, I definitely am a realist, but I also know the idea of the etheric part that nothing is really real or to get hung about, right?
Yes, nothing really matters, so there's nothing to get hung about, and there's strawberry fields forever.
Yes.
But I've been working on algorithms and had my head in the clouds and totally lost track of time. because I came up with a different sequence of fractal patterns that make sense.
Oh?
Yeah. You know how in the Mayan calendar it's based on a 1326?
Oh, what?
Do you know how one of the Mayan calendars is based on a 1320 system, where they have 20 glyphs that rotate through 13 numbers that make the 260-day year of the rotation, called the Tzolk'in.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, when I was looking at how fractals relate to each other, an adjacent fractal has to have a 50% self-similarity, which means half of it is similar to what you know and the other half can be completely different, but it takes a period of time to integrate. So when a fractal changes, you might not notice depending on the scale of the fractal. But figure that fractals are each different scale. About human to ant would be one fractal. That's about the size difference. So anything you can see on this fractal, you can't really see the same on the next fractal, but it's 50% self-similar. And from an ant-sized human, the next fractal down might be a mite or a tick or something way smaller than an ant, but still not visible on our scale. Say something like a tardigrade. But as you go down in complexion amongst the scales, that's what determines the fractals. And it seems like the Planck scale, 10 to the minus 34th, and the scale of human scale, 10 to the 1, give you roughly 10 orders of magnitude. And so there's 10 fractals within that scale. Each fractal is different, but the adjacent fractals are all self-similar. And so things have to have continuity, but if they're reproduced fractals, they can be images of each other and not starting from the same place, but it still works the same. It's like how you can go to a beach and see worlds that look like thumbprints, and you look at your thumbprint and you see worlds that look like the sand on the beach. And it's just the same manifestation of a fractal. 10 to the power of x, where x is some number to like 3.14. That's my separation number. 3.14 happens to be the number of pi. So if every fractal is separated from every other fractal by 10 to the pi, now we're talking. I probably just lost every single listener you have. I'm sorry.
You're allowed to be as sorry as you darn well please. Doesn't make it so, though.
I'm laughing.
We've got a great audience here who actually does get some of the drifts that we try to expound around here.
Well, I've been in the world of quarks this morning, and I'm trying to figure out if it's 2 ups and a down or 2 downs and an up.
Or an up and 2 downs and an up.
Well, no. Quarks come in 3s.
Okay.
But which one is 2 and which one is 1 in the down and up, I don't know. But somebody out there might know. So one of the people in the chat room can drop it in.
Possible.
Anyway, fractal sequence. There's 13 different fractals, and it goes 1, 8, 2, 9, 3, 10, 4, 11, 5, 12, 6, 13, 7, and then back to 1. And so each fractal that would normally seem to be adjacent, like 4 to 5 or 5 to 6, actually is not adjacent. It's twice removed. So it's only a 25% chance of self-similarity. And so things can get bizarre rather quickly if they're not right. And I think we're in a world where it's totally, totally bizarre any longer.
Yeah, no doubt there. The capital B, actually.
So if we live in bizarre world, then we have to change the narrative. And so you write your narrative and I'll write my narrative and I'll be the supporting cast of your narrative and you be the supporting cast in my narrative. And we'll both have fun writing co-narratives.
It's like my daily waking existence, Lenny. I mean, isn't it like with all of us? We have how many conscious patterns that we don't even recognize, let alone trying to make something like a narrative.
I don't know. I've simplified myself to the point where I think I know how to do me pretty well.
Okay, that sounds good.
I won't try and think in monoterms because I know if I tried to think in monoterms, I wouldn't get there from here. But I understand that sometimes the concepts that we bring as hard and fast need somebody to come up and puncture that balloon so that it pops and we no longer think the way we think when we think we're right and somebody else is wrong, because all of that's relative.
How is it relative?
Well, perspective differs depending on how you see something.
Right.
So people have different perspectives, and if you're trying to get an absolute truth from different perspectives, there has to be some order of negotiation between the parties trying to converge on what the reality is. But in point of fact, it's usually one reality or the other, and the forced merger creates an artificial reality all of itself.
Wow.
Yeah, I call it the muddle in the middle.
But
it's really something that I try and stay away from. That's why I live outside the box.
Well, did you recycle the box at least?
It's sitting on the bed right now, waiting to be filled and then taken out to the Winnebago so that I can clear up a lot of junk, which is the project of the afternoon.
Huh?
I'm going to take the blankets and lay them out in the sun and let them catch some rays. I was going to try and plant some plants, but unfortunately, by the end of the radio show, it's past noon and the temperature has been in the 80s, and there ain't no way I'm planting plants in the ground in 80-degree weather.
Right. Are you amending the soil at all?
I have 6 holes from last year that yesterday I cleaned up what was growing on top of those holes. And I've got some onions and stuff growing around them that shouldn't affect the plants, but I've got 9 plants and 6 holes, so that's a good start.
You think about container gardening at all?
I'm on 38 acres. Why would I want to try and do container gardening when there's fresh land, good compost, and all sorts of stuff here?
Well, because I like them close to me. I like to talk to them. I like to tell them how beautiful they are. And yeah, I just get off on having plants real close. That's all.
Yeah. Whereas I look around in the place I live and there's no live plants inside my house or my place. But that's because I go outside and I'm totally in nature, and they're alive in nature. And if I bring them inside, they're not going to live very long. I mean, sometimes the garlic sprouts, but I don't think that counts as a plant, does it?
No, and it also depends, because I've had to take all my wintered plants outside because they're done wintering over. But I still have a spider plant for healthy air and a jade for healthy air. Takes out some really nasty toxins. And other ones I'm trying, but I don't have enough direct sun, and I wouldn't want it in the summer, so.
Right. And I live in a place where I'm the only one who pollutes it, except for maybe Einstein and Izzy the Wonder Dog on occasion.
Right.
But I'm getting myself psyched for massive cleanup because it's desperately necessary that I do this today. Because I'm just looking around and looking for stuff and realize that, gotta find what I need. And in order to find what I need, I gotta take the stuff that I haven't paid any attention to in the last year and go put it into deep storage in the Winnebago. Because it's now weather to wear shorts and t-shirts, and I still have my winter clothes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did too for a while.
It's June 1st. I got to get serious. I got to really do at least one good cleansing, and I'm psyched to do it today since I can't plant my garden.
And because we're actually been in the 60s today. Yep, it was pretty chilly. In fact, going outside it is. It's semi-chilly. So I have long pants on and long sleeve shirt on.
So, where would you like to go with our show today? What shall we discuss?
Did you see that video? You didn't, that I left on your wall? Or on your page?
No, I was busy up until the time of the show, and then the tablet didn't want to let go of my signal. So, let me go.
That's all right.
Page.
No, yeah, it's through Skype, you know. What the fuck? What? I didn't ask for this shit. Why did that just pop up? Really weird. Anyway, it's a Jeff Reese video. Magnetic motors and perpetual motion. It was actually a pretty interesting ideology of how they've lied to us about how things are really supposed to be going, which is really something else.
Oh, I haven't, without even having an idea of what it says, absolutely they have completely lied to us about free energy and everything to do with it. And so what they teach in school is a manifestation of a lot of weirdness.
Right.
It doesn't work the way they tell us it works, and what they tell us works in a certain way works in a completely different way.
Oh, yeah. That's what's happening. But there are also things where magnets do, and how we prove that they can heal or destroy, or, I mean, just like vibrations in that. It's just a different kind of compounded, I don't know, how could you say, elemental degree of the fabric of the rules of life. In my opinion, anyway. I love magnets. I'd love to really get to learn more about them. Did I lose you?
No, magnets and electricity, we're told, are related in perpendicular direction, but I'm not sure that that's correct. I think that we might have been taught physics incorrectly in order that we couldn't figure out how things worked, and were given things that already worked so we didn't have to figure them out, and that there is a lot of staging that goes into education that is to make us think that things are not what they seem.
Well, it's kind of proven itself, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm much more happy creating crypto fictions than living in the current reality.
No, because I want this for my grandchild. I want the truth of the reality of life itself, and to try to consider playing an off role to me is not the time and place, at least right now.
Well, there's a deceptive reality out there, and your grandchild probably sees reality through quite different eyes than you do.
Oh, sure they do. But I have a daughter and a granddaughter that are the same age. They're the 20-year-olds.
I see.
But none of them will talk to me. As
crazy old lady?
I think they just are in so much of a ideal of, how do I say it? What reality is supposedly being taught to them through the electronics, because they live electronics. They're not even getting the full picture. You remember when you had to do a book report? You checked how many different kinds of books out just to see the different perspectives of what it, unless you just wanted to sail through and didn't care. But I'd have like 5 different opinions on the subject and read about them before I'd even put anything down on paper. But they don't do that anymore. It's just like having your Facebook on the iPhone. You read the headline and believe that's all the facts. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other adults that work like that.
Well, yeah, the way that I always look at things is that first, I use a method I call QPRST. First thing I do is I have a question that I want to address. So I preview what's going on in that area and collect a bunch of different sources from a bunch of different areas and look at what they're saying, look at their pictures, but only look at the headlines and that. Then after I've got an idea of what's going on, then I'll look for some stuff that really goes into the depth I want and read about it. And then after I've read about it, I'll go back to the other things and see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense as part of the study time, so that by the time I'm ready to take a test in a classroom, I've looked at the perspectives from as many different angles as I can see, and I'm not answering the specific questions. But, testing itself is sort of corrupted because they give you multiple guess and you can job a multiple guess. I used to use true false, and if it was false, correct the statement to make it true. And that way you knew if people knew the material or not, because it was easy enough to make a statement like all electrons are positive, and that's not true. Electrons are negative. But somebody could correct the statement to say all protons are positive, and that would be just as correct a statement as all electrons are negative.
Well, I guess you better make sure either or before you go and do anything that you really don't want to do.
No, in fact, don't do anything that you don't want to do. That's the whole trick. Only do what you want to do, and if other people want you to do something and you don't want to do it, and then you do it and it doesn't work out, you knew it wasn't going to work out. Why did you do it in the first place? You knew better.
Well, because you were supposed to try to prove the other people wrong.
Who cares about who's right and who's wrong?
I know that, but the ego still has its words, input, and behaviors. You know that.
Well, the ego needs to feed us more money to serve itself, but the ego's out chasing the money and not doing anything that really helps the human who has the ego. So maybe it's time to give up on Freud and find a different model.
Well, I'll tell you something. I meet people of such different standards. Like, okay, I'll tell you about my earthworm casing experience. Now, I got 50-pound bags that by the amount of bags I paid $20 worth, it would have been almost $400 worth of earthworm casings. So I lucked out. Now, it did take 2 days and many phone calls, etc., but I did achieve getting my bags of earthworm casings. Now, he could have scalped me. He could have put himself, $8 a bag, even though they sell for like $32 a bag. But the guy, because he felt he was Christian and didn't want to do anything against anybody else, literally did me that favor. He wouldn't do it for other people, and I only met him through the phone calls. So he wants to classify himself as a Christian, and of course I can't say anything about that, at least to him in his face, because he really believes that we're going through revelations, but there's a answer on the other side of it. And I can see that, but he's living by the words of a book that somebody else wrote. And that's how he's trained himself to believe he's supposed to exist. That's semi-scary to me.
Yes, it is. I'm not sure the way that things work, but I do know that the way I think they work is as good as the way anyone else thinks they work. So to get me to change my mind on how something works means giving me a better explanation than I already have. And sometimes people do that. The explanation I got from Gerald Pollack on how water actually works made me go into about 6 years worth of deep thought, getting out the mistakes that I had in the way water worked from the way I thought it worked to the way it actually works. And now I'm convinced that structured water is extremely important. But as soon as you add something to the structured water, you restructure it. And so there's a lot more to the game of water than meets the eye. And in order to really do water properly on Earth, we need to stop putting pollution into water of all forms. And so figuring out alternatives to polluting water means closing drain pipes that lead into rivers and shutting down corrupt organizations like the EPA, which sells allowances to pollute to industries. And it's sort of a shakedown that doesn't really address the problem. It just makes money for the grubberment.
Yeah, no doubt there. For some reason, Batwoman just came into my mind. It was a great movie. Yeah. Yeah. Or was it Catwoman? Oh, I don't know which one it was. But she ended up trying to bring this cosmetic company who lies about what ingredients they use in their product. And they wash all these toxic chemicals out into the water. Well, they tried to kill her and threw her into the water, but instead of the chemicals killing her, it actually enhanced her. So she became a superhero fighting the villains. But I don't believe that polluting the water or the air or the land has any benefit whatsoever. It's just like, who was it? Oh, it was Mark Steele. He was trying to build the scrubbers for the industrial stacks so the stuff doesn't get into the air. And well, hey, they decided not to use that invention for that kind of system. They would rather put and destroy the air with the system. That's why the 5G is changing the environmental conditions.
Yeah, well, it's hard to understand what's going on, but sometimes maybe we need to slip into the world of Carlos Castaneda and dream language instead of the world of AI, which I call arrogance and ignorance.
Oh, Don't let an AI hear you. Their ego come in and attack your ass.
Yeah, they're going to shut down the show now because I said something evil about AI.
Oh, that was another video I listened to. And for the technology and terminology that we use today is so inadequate that I do wonder how people do get the knowledge or the comprehension of anything they think they understand.
Especially since those things are falling apart in the backstories of what we were taught that were used to support the stories in the foreground. So if the foreground stories don't work and the backstories don't work, why is it that we believe any of this?
Well, it's like you said, I trust more in my dream visions than I do what always seems to be reality.
And so it's important for each of us in our own reality to create the place that would make us happy in our mind. And by creating it in our mind and dwelling there in our mind, we'll find that our reality is shaped by our flow of mind and our surroundings will change. Not saying you sit magically on the couch, you sit on the couch, watch television, and it magically changes. But if you work to do things that you want to do, your life is full of stuff that you want to do. And so go out and do something. Have fun. Start a radio show. Broadcast your words to everybody else and talk about what you know about, but know that what you know isn't what you really know, and somebody else is going to know something else.
Right.
And if you enjoy other people and can talk to each other about all the world of different things, what we can do is we can break out of these little boxes or compartments that they've separated us into by having us watching video screens and not talking to each other.
But that's how actual businesses have been drawn into.
I think the whole concept of business needs to be rethought by our society because we can't carry as many people as middlemen in a transaction and have the producer and the receiver in the transaction both not be able to support the system. I mean, you've got to support whoever's getting the work done and the people doing the work, and it can't be done when you've got banks and insurance companies and taxes and payments and all sorts of things that get in the way of people doing what they have to do.
Right.
But everything's been mortgaged to the hilt to create more of this fake value that's hidden in the hands of very few people. And then they call themselves philanthropists and push vaccines on us.
All for the nanotechnology. That's how they get to do the surveilling of us in cities and things like that because we leave tracer energies.
So we have to change the paradigm completely and make that nano energy instead of nano energy. Nano, of course, is a reference to our friend Mork from Ork. Nano.
Right.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
No, you're not. It's all good.
You're not laughing.
Well, because I'm not laughing. I mean,
that's okay.
I mean, yeah. There you go.
So we're not allowed to laugh, right?
No, that's not it. I just get it. That was one of my favorite shows of all times was watching Mork and Mindy.
Mindy who?
Mork's housemate.
Mork was from Ork.
Right, but he ended up on Earth and having to live with Mindy.
Nanu.
That's like aloha twice.
We have fun. there's so many people out there who did not live through that time of television, the 1970s, where absurdity was second to none, and they tried to convince us we had normal lives by watching the Brady Bunch and Petticoat Junction.
I remember those.
Donna Reed early on, but notice how it morphed. Remember Married with Children?
Oh yeah, one of something I watched every Saturday. I'm sure if it was on Saturday.
I used to watch it just to see how snippy Christina Applegate could get.
Because Alf was like right along the same time channel, whatever. It's like both of them put together.
Yeah. We got really, really warped by having television our entire lives. And then when I finally went to college and lost television, it was just an opportunity to substitute drugs for television. And then when I got out into the real world and had to function, well, no, I didn't get out into the real world. I stayed in college and went to graduate school and played that sort of game. So I got learned.
Me totally comprehend, man. Yes.
The more you know, the more you understand you don't know.
Yeah.
And so a lot of smart people tend to make it up as they go in order to explain themselves. And you don't have to make it up. Reality is much more stranger than truth.
Depends on which of the categories you have chosen. Oh, gosh.
I prefer charm to strange. And there's 2 charms for every strange. So that we net balance in the world.
Neat.
Yeah, so you
might want to give definition, though, Lenny, about the meaning and surplus behind what is charmed and what is, what did you say?
Strange.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, people are strange. You know the Doors song? When you're a stranger, faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked. Well, he got that right.
Yahoo! Oh, hey, honey. I have no prejudice against any kind of situation of that occurrence.
Yes. Strange and charmed are 2 of the 6 quarks in physics. And it always bothered me why they used those names. The other 4 quarks are top and bottom, up and down. And quarks are subatomic particles that were invented after the model of chemistry was already created. And so chemists never got to play with quarks. And so later, after I retired from civilized world work and had time to spend on my hands, I went to start questioning, could I get a chemistry based on quarks instead of having a chemistry based on atoms, since quarks were supposedly subatomic particles.
Oh, okay.
And so I was trying to figure out how nuclear chemistry really worked on the basis of interactive quarks. And it got rather quarky.
Well, when you're saying that, I know this just runs through my mind, but then, I am strange at moments in time. But the situation is I would think like a quirk is like the energy that performs the vibrations for the atoms to do what they're supposed to be directed to do.
Yes.
At least in my mind.
The way that I've conceptualized chemistry as a chemist is different atoms have bonds to each other. And those bonds are made up of pairs of electrons that when they are paired, it's like having a good, comfortable marriage. You just interlock and you connect two easier and at less cost than it costs for one, and you get the power of like 2.5. When you introduce more particles into the nucleus, you tend to get more interactions between different particles, and it's a lot like having your first child as parents. And so a normal functioning, ideal Donna Reed home, two parents have a child, and that child copacetically relates equally to both of the parents, and the parents can still keep their relationship despite the child waking them up every night at 3 a.m. and stuff like that.
Well, that's just in the beginning. So otherwise, yes, there could be a separation of expectations due to reality. But it's also what the energies are that we place into that momentum to...
Right. So if you add a fourth child or a second child and make it a group of 4, the dynamics don't change from the group of 3 pretty much. The fourth child gets along to go along, and there's really more expectation placed on the first child to behave himself while mom takes care of the second child. That starts a child off with a lot of neurosis because dad isn't really there. He's out in the working world earning a living.
Well, so are mothers.
That's what I was about to say. In reality, so are the mothers. But we're talking about Donna Reed's 1960s.
That's
world.
right. But the two children would have kept each other company. So then there would be that fourth separation. Or
When
not separation, but pattern.
Right. When you add the third child of a family with 5, now all hell breaks loose. Because there are so many different dynamics going on between interpersonal relationship, including parents who are stressing their relationship, both dealing with a pack of kids and pack of children. And
Thank you.
Each child being individual.
Right.
And the stresses between 2 individual children who are fighting between each other with and without the interference of the third child who feels left out or feels they have to and solve the problem. When you get up to Brady Bunch terms and have 8 in the family, plus Alice to be referee,
right,
it gets to the point where all heck has broken loose and the nucleus has to shatter at that point. So here in 1960s programming, they've taught us nuclear chemistry leads to fission.
There you go.
So it's all programming. That's why they call it programming, similar to doctors and lawyers saying that they're practicing. Don't they ever get it right?
Exactly. Well, as individual situations and occurrences that do manifest themselves, I think it's also when you hook the first two together, there has to be some kind of magnetism. And I think that goes with all structure, not just the organic, but also the synthetic, because they tried to fathom and figure out how to replace something that doesn't need to be replaced, like nature. So
that's for profit, and that's why I'm totally non-corporate. I think that we have to get back to human scale and rediscover humanity from human scale. But in order to do that, we can't get there from here because the pressure to earn a living in order to compete to stay alive is a stupid myth taught to everybody by the school system.
Well, it breaks up a true foundation of what it is that you need to work with to support yourself through life. I mean, what an ugly game has been created.
Yeah, whereas I always thought life was a cereal.
Mikey, you just found anything. Anyway, the whole situation, from what I have fathomed, is I just don't placate to think that anything outside of myself has the structure that what I feel to know for within myself. And I think when you said that there was 4 other quarks, as in up and down, and what was the other ones?
Top and bottom.
Okay, well, to me, that would be up and down. What happened with the within and the without? Isn't that part of the ingredients?
Well, you see, the quarks as subatomic particles are paired that you get two bottoms to a top. You get 2 ups to a down, and you get 2 charms to a strange. And that's what balances. And so that way, instead of having just charmed working against strange and having things strange half the time, what you have is strange balanced by charmed, who would never even think to go about strange, but then have a second charm to hang on, and now you got to convince 2 of us, and the charms can work together and say, that's too strange, we're not going there. So it's like flipping a coin between heads and tails, but having the next algorithm where you get 2 heads to every tail.
It's amazing how the universe actually works, isn't it? And that we even have enough consciousness, Lenny, to try to figure it out. Or at least hopefully be copacetic with it.
Well, if we think about it, we can apply it to ourselves.
Okay.
You need yeses to overrule a no.
You need what?
2 yeses to know that it's not for your answer. 2 truths to tell you it's not false.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. It balances things a lot better than true versus false, when false can lie and true believes it because he doesn't think about lying. Second true would say, hey, you know what? He's lying. First true go, really? And 2 truths would, if the false can beat 2 truths, maybe it's not false. Maybe it's one of the truths. But true and false can trade off sometimes, so that what's true appears to be false and what's false appears to be true. Just like the movie Men in Black, which was totally 100% true, but portrayed so that everybody thought it was 100% false. Wow. I'm lying.
No, you're not. I love that show. All of them. Anything that has to do with aliens and sci-fi like that. Oh my gosh.
We're moving into. It's a spinning world like a top. It works like a vortex, and we're all sucked in, and then we go through a 0 point and manifest at a different energy and find that we're human again.
Wouldn't that be sweet that people could actually feel good next to somebody else? Because so many people live in so much fear that, oh my gosh, they're walking diseases because they're so much at dis-ease, you know?
Yeah, they make other people feel uncomfortable with their dis-ease.
Right.
And so that spreads dis-ease, and then we have pharmaceuticals to the rescue.
Oh, heaven. Oh, they sell it. Yeah, well, there's your true false crap.
So, explain to me the logic on this vaccine stuff.
Why?
If I get a vaccine, I'm taking a virus.
Yes, supposedly.
I get the virus poked into me in some sort of form that makes my immune system shed the virus, and I get a mild dose of something and now have the immunity so that I can resist a mass dose of it, right?
That was what they curtailed to try to teach us, yes.
Okay. If that were true, and somebody came in bearing a disease that they were not vaccinated for, shouldn't I be immune to that disease?
I think it is all a state of mind. So, I mean, as per se, I can't say I wasn't vaccinated because I was. And I think the vaccinations that my daughters had to take to travel the world is what's hurting her. And I don't even want to think about the youngest daughter because
I don't think it's a state of mind so much as I think it's a state of mind.
Okay, but hold on. Then let me finish what I was saying because otherwise I forgot that was what I was trying to say. That if we are in discord or strange or some kind of essence to where we actually have lowered our immune system by our attitude, our beliefs, our structure, if DNA and genes really hold fact, then I shouldn't have an appendix, tonsils, and all kinds of other organs that my whole family has had to have taken care of, but me. Because I've tried to live a happy, healthy coexistence in life, not fighting it, not drugging it, feeling bad about it. Do you see what I'm saying? That's my immune system, is not holding on to anything that...
You see, you made a mistake there with your immune system.
Okay.
And it worked to your benefit hugely. If you were following what they said in the medical profession,
okay,
and taking your pharmaceuticals like a good little girl and not using the herbs and smoking the herbs that you use and smoke, you would have needed those things to be healthy. But since you knew that your health was based on your endocannabinoid system and other things going on subconsciously, you were getting your daily medicine without taking their meds, and that made it so that your organs functioned somewhat normally before they spraying.
I am not going to make that claim. Even though I will make that I can see it 100% factual. I am making the claim that I spent over 40 years in herbal health and healing. Had a little bit of metaphysical part on the side, knew a lot of things that other people didn't know, and yes, body, mind, and spirit. But it's only the mind that is in true control. Okay? I mean it. That is what my immune system is. I can take herbs and say, yeah, this will work here and that'll work there, but I've been exposed to so many contagions and nothing has come through to me because I am not gonna accept it as fact or truth.
Yeah. The other thing is that Bridgette's totally right in this area, and that part of health is having the right set of healthy microbes.
Yeah, I do agree with that too.
Because you've been eating healthy and leading a good herbal lifestyle,
right?
You have the diversity of microbes that makes you have healthy fauna and flora. Whereas a lot of other people, their internals aren't right because they've got too high a level of carbonation or too much calcium, or I don't know. Body's kind of funny. Too much of a good thing is bad.
True. That is part of it as well, is moderation. I mean, our bodies, once I saw these breatharians and watching National Geographic and things like that on what these monks could achieve with their minds. I mean, goodness sakes alive. Now, I'm not saying that maybe for a moment I'm going to be taken by surprise because of an element, but doesn't mean I have to latch onto it and create it as an issue or a problem for a future situation to occur. Because I know what I'm in control of is my manifestation of my environment through my actions, my words, and my deeds and thoughts.
And in fact, you're at the point where you can manifest that instantly on demand.
I dream about that.
Well,
Divine Right Order still has its workings from universal law, so I don't hold my breath. But I do know that I have stepped into where it is a grand design.
Good. I think the grand design allows us to create our own reality based on our expectation and what our mind dwells on. And so that if we can come up with a new possibility for reality, somewhere in a reality, the mind is going to take us there. And the further we revision our play of where we go when we go there, the more it draws that play into reality, so that eventually the reality supersedes the previous reality and you go there for real.
It is such a flow. I have walked through veils and portals, so I know that the other dimensional realms are valid. Okay, and it wasn't through tripping or anything else like that. It was literally some glitch in the system that showed me that was possible. We're at the top of the hour break, Mr. Lenny. We'll be right back. In fact, we've talked over it. Oh, well, we'll be right back.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, all you good-looking people out there in Revolution Radio. This is Mario. I invite you to join me Thursdays at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other. It's a show about you, it's a show about me, but ultimately it's a show where we try to have a little bit of fun. We discuss some quirky topics, and we do our best to be apolitical. So I invite you, put on your favorite pair of comfy sweats, your smoking jacket, and grab a beverage of your choice, and join me Thursday evenings at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other on Revolution Radio.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
From the astral realms to the physical plane, the halls of power to the walls of home, the multiverse to the innerverse, all will be haunted by the ghost in the machine. I am Steve Zerloff, the ghost in the machine. Mondays, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio B. Exclusively here on Revolution.Radio.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendivite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendivite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendivite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendivite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back to one of the best radio stations on the internet, Revolution.radio. We're here at carrying stones and digging holes, I think. Bridgette is away doing some extra classes, so yay for Bridgette. She'll be back next Saturday. And so, remember, we are listener sub, and we seriously need you to do the archives and donate cash, etc., etc. This is the 1st of June 2019. Today I have with me Mr. Lenny Thyme. Okay.
Hello.
Pardon?
Hello.
I believe in fairy tales.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle. Here is my spout.
Are you telling on yourself?
Yeah. I'm actually making some Earl Grey. I just poured it. I have a tea bag. Now I let it steep for 3 to 5 minutes, and I will have a cup with bergamot flavor because I got to hit a grocery store this week.
Oh. You actually are doing an artificial flavor?
No. I've got
good.
Bergamot is one of the ingredients, and it is a different type of plant that adds a little flavor that is partial to Earl Grey and Lady Grey.
I know what bergamot is. I didn't hear the whole word. So that is why I'm like going and try to avoid a lot of exposure to sunlight because it does the UV a little. Well, it used to. There's like 3 other different plants that if you go outside, when you take that herb, that it could affect your skin getting burnt by the sun.
I see. I'm just naturally a white, pale skin type of person with freckles.
Okay.
So my spend out in the sun generally leads to a sunburn and not a tan.
Oh.
So I gotta watch myself.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm Irish and Native American, so I'm tan all winter. Because I don't go out in the sun because it makes me blister and itch and pain. Oh, the pain is horrible. Because there's some things we just cannot, unless, see, I've had to be my self-diagnosis because I don't trust the medical society, except for one time they did save my life. For anything that they would do in my favor at all.
I think one of the best things you can do medically is to wear a hat when you go outside in the sun.
I wear a bandana and avoid the sun, but I agree with you. Totally. I mean, occasion, a 5-minute walk, maybe, to the car or whatever, but.
Yeah. No, but I mean, if you're going to hang out and do something that's an outside thing, you want to be having something on your head so that you're not frying your brain.
Well, I have to agree with that during the winter, too. You got to have a hat on so you don't freeze your brain.
Yeah, the brain's not good at temperature extremes, and it's actually not good at thinking much about life because it's been taught wrong. But have an education system to thank for that.
I'm just happy that I am existing at this time, that I know the remnants of the reality of what the past meant to me in its full glory. Seriously. But then recognizing...
Now, days of glory?
Now everything seems sometimes to be such a conundrum that I just have to give thanks for what is achieved. That's all I can do. I have no expectations on life. Trust me. I don't. Because I see the down, dirty, ugly, murderous existence that people want to say are conspiracy theories when I've seen them personally and known them to be fact. Yeah, I'm told, oh, you're out of this world. You just don't even... And I'm like, I can't live your 3D bullshit. You know, the superficial, oh, everybody else is my problem but me crap. When I have no problems, and nobody's really a problem to me because I don't take them personally. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's like the movie They Live.
Oh, gosh, what a movie.
So what?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. The lies. Oh.
Lies are, everything's a lie, but there's truth underneath the lie. And if you spend enough time working at it, you develop your own truth that's not a lie. And over the course of time, it might take 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 hours to really understand something. But for those of us who've lived a cumulative of over 100,000 hours, 5,000 or 6,000 hours might seem to be a long time, but it's only the 10% of our lifetime. And
right.
So it's very, very important that we not get too caught up in believing our own thinking to the point where we should instruct other people on their thinking. On the other hand, you better believe your own thinking, because if you don't, you better sit down and rethink it. But there are areas where I defer to better judgment, and there are areas where, gee, you better take me to the mat, want to arm wrestle about that opinion? But that doesn't solve whether I keep the opinion or not, whether I get beat in the arm wrestling. So in a lot of cases, the person who doesn't know what's going on, but who has insight from a different direction, makes the key advance that makes it all work. Because the folks who know what the outcome should be and the folks who know what the mechanism is don't quite have it together, but there's somebody that can bridge that gap and explain it well enough to allow the other folks to figure out what's going on and make it happen. And good hit.
Yeah, it was. I was trying.
So when you make things happen, you never know what's going to happen, so you can't have an attachment to it. So what you can have attachment to, you set your hook to and you attach to. And if it's a fish, that fish will pull upstream a little bit and carry you for a little ways. But then you unhook and you hook to the next fish to carry you further upstream. And the further upstream you go, the more you find that the information necessary for you to progress further is deeper buried in your own history. And so, quite a little twist and tail at the end.
But now see, history is something else, because we do think our mind is our own. When we're influenced by so many outside external essences, that's all I can say, energies, vibrations, however you want to put it, that we don't always decipher what is ours and what is somebody else's or something else's. And so until we can recognize not to take any of it personal, do look at it. I mean, have discernment. Are you really feeling that way? Or is there something else around you that is trying to warn you of something that things might feel that way? Okay, did that make sense?
I create this person to push my buttons to trigger me.
Yeah. Because people don't need much to get triggered.
No, you can trigger somebody with a few choice words, and once you do that and you get them triggered, you own them. But if you own them,
what?
You have a responsibility not to let them down into a place that they get lost, because then they get angry and will beat you up.
I don't know. I haven't really had, at least to that point of degree, tried to attack and that. Well, yeah, I guess oh gosh. It's really difficult to state because the environment has so much to do with it, but then each individual, now you've got to know, Lenny, I've lived with 8 and 9 different people in one house. You know what I mean? So I've dealt with a lot of thought patterns and attitudes.
Yeah, and they get triggered by you a lot more than they trigger you, but occasionally different people will trigger you.
It's not a trigger as much as just protecting myself and knowing how I should respond so I don't have to carry somebody else's bullshit along with me. Because I won't.
Yes, and you shouldn't have to.
No, now you're going for that hit. Okay.
It's 11:11. I had to do a hit.
It's 2:11 here. Whoop, 2:12. Oh.
I have found that my two devices, my tablet and my computer, are now 5 minutes off from each other.
Oh, interesting.
So when I'm running the radio station on the computer and pumping it through Discord, the computer clock tells me the station is off air at 9 o'clock. But the signal from the station allows me to go till 9:05, which is when it's 9 o'clock on the tablet, and then the station turns off.
We are just controlled by so much AI.
Yeah, and what I figured out has happened now is that I exist consciously in another timeline. And in the other timeline, it's doing exactly the same stuff I'm doing in this timeline, but it has more information relevant to that timeline that has nothing to do with the timeline trajectory I'm currently on. And so in times when I'm saying something on the radio that they're not supposed to hear, or they're saying something on the radio that I'm not supposed to hear, I lose the signal to the station and it doesn't get across.
I had a guest tell me they were the drive-by listeners. Oh.
If you can attract drive-by listeners, you're doing something right.
Well, I'm amazed this is my 6th year. Because this is one thing that I've really have big honor of doing, is being a part of this station. And I've grown up a lot. My whole physical and mental and spiritual realm has completely let go of everything in the past.
My philosophy is to live every day and be done with it. And whether it was the best of times or the worst of times, it was yesterday and I got to deal with today.
Right.
On the other hand, I remember the lessons that I learned in the past, and now in some of the dream states that I thought might be past lives, I think might not be past lives, but might be future lives. And that some of the myths that we were told need to be looked into a lot deeper, given how so much else of what we're is going on. And if you remember, I don't know how to say it. Some of the wisdoms we were given by our grandparents don't make sense, but did make total sense to them and might be indicative of different ways of life. A stitch in time saves 9. I know what that means. You know what that means.
Do I? No, I don't. Tell me what it means.
A stitch in time saves 9.
Yeah.
It means that if you have a rip on a sweater or a shirt and you see that it's torn and you stitch it up real quick, it saves it from being a huge rip and requiring 9 times the amount of work and stitches to fix it back up to make it still feasible. And if you need all the clothing that you own to live in, you certainly don't. You want to make the stitch in time to save the 9.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I assumed it's meant, but I just wanted to hear that.
You were playing me for an explanation when you already knew what it meant?
No, I had to make sure I was correct by what I understood by what you compulated.
Yes, computated.
Okay, whatever.
It's one of those things where the listening audience...
Oh, I know what I wanted to bring up. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Since you had your little spiel there for a moment. Now, there's supposedly 10 parallel dimensions that are amongst the consciousnesses. Okay, now I've studied a lot of consciousness because when you're told as a child, you're crazy, etc., I wanted to make sure that I was or wasn't. So I went to a lot of places that were teaching about consciousness, subconsciousness, superconsciousness, God consciousness. I mean, there's like maybe 7, because I didn't study it to the point of being able to repeat it. But I know there's more than what we assume that goes on in a power structure of consciousness used in our minds, or how our minds try to facilitate the direct awake consciousness. Okay?
Okay.
So when you say that, yes, something else is going on in a different one, you're correct. But it isn't something that we all can actually recognize, because some people don't even realize they have a subconsciousness that has so much more to do with what our waking lives are than our consciousness, unless you know that there's a difference. And then with the super consciousness and then the super duper, I mean, there's so many influences that until you get out of your own way, and you don't have to own the moments now because you're only a part of it. I don't want to own any of it. I will own the behavior if I have to behave in certain structured ways to get through it quicker or better or easier. But I'm not going to try to control it. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I always thought that during Get Smart, Maxwell Smart and Agent 99 are on the wrong side, and they should be fighting for chaos over control rather than for control over chaos.
But I do have control of my own being self, because I know that I am manifesting, I am magnetizing magnetism. I know by what I think and feel and be is what I'm going to receive. I'm not saying stuff doesn't jump out in front of you every now and then, but I'm still in that mode.
You are a self-existent being.
To the best recognition of my acknowledgement, I guess the me, myself, and I of the we and me is all okay.
Yeah. Just stay away from those time portals. They're totally disheveling.
I haven't seen any in quite some time. There was a whole bunch of them in Florida. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine a state being surrounded by salt water that at one time was actually healthy salt water. I mean, I had so many metaphysical conditions and situations happen there. It was amazing. Because salt water is a great conductive. And plus, I was in St. Pete, Florida, so I was another little peninsula out into its own self. So.
Yeah, I know of a place about 2 hours away from here that's a hot springs.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been there for a long time, but I do know that when I soak in the hot springs there, I get so charged with energy that I have an inkling to go again.
That'd be a different set of metals or minerals, I mean.
Absolutely, but it's a healthy set. When I'm in Ashland, which is also 2 hours away in a different direction, I get into soak in a mineral spa. So definitely helps to get immersion. And for those of you trying this at home, that's what Epsom salts are for. So throw some Epsom salts in your bathtub before you take a bath next time you're going to do it, and your body will thank you for the charge of magnesium.
And if you don't do baths, a foot soak will work. Because I don't do baths. I would do a hot tub, though, but not the hot tub here because they're not the mineral springs like you're saying, hot springs. We have a hot springs here, too. It's excellent. It is so cool to be able to drive down the country road, look up and see the Milky Way and every bright spot that's around it. I mean, it's an amazing, beautiful moment of existence. It's made such a good memory.
Yes. Everything we thought we believed is true, but the names have been changed to protect the guilty.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, gosh. Yes, they have. All for profit, all for profit, all for profit.
Yep, and Hollywood tells you the real story and calls it fiction and then makes documentaries and pretends that it's fact.
That's why I believe in fairy tales. Because I know that there are facts behind them. They're fairy tales.
Hansel and Gretel freaked me out.
Oh, they're child trafficking now. Yeah, you got to fatten them babies up so you can traffic them. Didn't have to eat them, but hey, there's cannibalism in some South Pacific islands out there. I mean,
U.S. too.
Pardon?
And some cities in the U.S. too.
I could scream, yell, and holler. I could even probably start crying.
You might, but you might as well laugh instead.
Oh, gosh.
Or to do either. And it's the best medicine. It's all a crypto fiction. Don't believe anything they tell you, but in order to get in the spirit of the game, believe everything they tell you. And then when it doesn't work, you can shake your head and nod and say, I told you so, but you're playing along because that's what you're supposed to do. Until we can change the game, I don't think anybody should step outside what they know the game to be or their comfort zone. But let's face it, this isn't going to work for very much longer.
Turn off the TV.
Yeah,
right. Turn off the TV. Get rid of the programming that is happening around you because that's what's taking your life away. Is all these sales ads. I have a degree in commercial art. I could not lie for these idiots who are doing this to us.
And why are they lying? Just for corporate greed?
The bigger plan is power plays. Whose penis is bigger than the other ones? It's all just devastatingly, I don't know, what do you call it? Maritime, where they believe they literally own us and possess all life on the planet. When I don't believe that was actually the true law of it or what was supposed to happen, but they denied us to know that the magic that they're working They made it criminal. They made it demonic. They made it evil when it's the truest mechanisms of how this environment and life works and gets created.
We've been reading a lot of Manly P. Hall, The Secret of All Ages, on my radio show, and he's been describing things, and when I step back and listen to his description of how things used to work 100 years ago, I get to questioning what was taught at the time and how it was used, and I'm starting to disbelieve more and more that anything that we've been taught in history is correct, because I don't think we're even in a system that makes sense, but that people like Manly Hall, who were taught things as children and could relate them back to the rest of us, would, it's sort of like Orson Scott Card's book Ender's Game. They use children in ways that manipulate them, and then when they grow to be adults, they're broken adults.
Yeah. Yeah. All by expectations of making somebody else feel better about yourself. That's just criminal. I better make myself feel better about myself than I give a darn how I make other people feel. Even though I'm very courteous and very giving and can make a valid whatever, but I'm not here to appease anybody. That'd be like getting married. That's like criminal. It turns into a possession clause where you're supposed to act a certain way because of the word marriage or whatever. I can't facilitate that kind of bull crap any longer.
The legal system still enforces it, even though most people can't accept it, and the extraction payments to get out of it are hideous for everybody involved. So the worst people involved in that are children, but the system has made it so that a one-parent family qualifies for way more than a two-parent family, and it causes a lot of dysfunctional relationships.
Yeah, assuming that we actually have a clue about what is going on and how it's manifesting. So why is the station showing? Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. And if you really have a clue, it was Mr. Green in the observatory with the wrench. Did we lose the station?
No. You kind of lost me because I didn't catch it.
Mr. Green, observatory, wrench. Now you have a clue.
No, I don't.
You've never played the board game Clue?
No.
Clue is a board game where Mr. Body died and you had 6 suspects. Colonel Mustard, Mrs. White, Mr. Green, Miss Scarlet, Professor Plum, and I don't remember the other one. But anyway, you had to go from room to room, and you had these little weapons, and the idea was that everybody got cards that had a suspect, a weapon, and a room, and you had to figure out which cards were in the envelope for suspect, room, and solve the case. So Clue is a game running around. And so when you said you got to have a clue, I immediately flashed to a result of a Clue game and gave you the clue.
Okay, then.
You see, that's when the cultural gap really, really happens, is that over the course of time, different people play different games. And I was never much for hide and seek.
I didn't have a family structure from 7th, 8th, and ninth grade. There was no family structure. So that might have been when I guess those games and all that was coming out. Heck, I was living with poltergeists and bikers and going to school every day, and oh my gosh. So I had no clue about it. I'm not a big game player. Video games, forget it. Don't even want to go close.
Well, they made a movie out of Clue. I don't know what year it was, but it was sometime in like the late 80s. And they used the characters in Clue, and it was supposed to be a comedy, but I really didn't watch it because by that time I was out of watching movies. But I'm sure that some of the chat audience, the radio audience, can relate to it.
Well, in the 80s, I was running 3 greenhouses and a mother and a market business and a wife. So wasn't much time for things like that.
You were certainly a camel, weren't you?
What do you mean?
You stuffed and piles it on your back, and you just do it because you're doing everything else. And the more work you do, the more work other people give you to do, and you don't even notice because it's all part of your work. So you've got all these different roles with other people depending on you to do stuff, and eventually there's a straw that breaks the camel's back.
Oh, I trained them. Trust me, they knew.
Okay.
They were boys, and my daughter was around occasionally, and basically it was like, this is what you do to cook something, this is what you do to fix a button on a shirt, this is how you do your laundry. So I taught them, and then I let it go. And I had no one to blame except myself. So whatever happened, when you're dealing with greenhouses and money and marketing and employees, you can't put all the rest of that other stuff on yourself. I wouldn't. No, those were some interesting times too. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we happened to buy a house, and the boys were still young, like 4 and 6. And it was in Al Capone's house because of the area that we lived in. He had winter cottages. Beautiful adobe home. Oh, it was great. And since I had my architecture degree and he was a carpenter, we did our own renovating and fixing the house, etc. And I would take Polaroids and take pictures. And you could see the apparitions in the house. And I was contacted by a few of them and other things of those nature. So it was a really eye-opening existence in my world. But
I'd let go. In my brain flashed to that Geraldo Rivera going into Al Capone's safe.
Right.
Where they buried it somewhere in Chicago, and they were opening it up on live television, and they had no idea what they were going to find. And they pulled this wall down and opened it up, and they found an empty liquor bottle. And it was on live TV, and that's the Al Capone trigger. Who was Al Capone?
He was basically entrepreneur of the opposite side of the government.
Are you sure, given government behavior, he might have been on the government side, eh?
Yeah, it wasn't during my time. I only got the aftermath. And the homes that he had strategically around in the neighborhood was gorgeous. And there was one big lake. And I mean, oh my gosh, it was really interesting. Everything got built up around it. Go ahead.
No, I think it's kind of interesting, the whole idea of gangsters running the world, because that's the reality of what we have.
Right.
So it's an image that was painted from the 1930s that has gotten so normalized that we don't think twice about it when it happens here in the 2020s?
Because everybody wants to be a part of the power play, I guess. I just won't, to the best of my ability. Because it doesn't seem to make things more, I don't know, I'll say profitable. And I don't mean that financially. Because to me, profit is a happy go and be and create and love and exist the way it was meant to. Not the fighting and the aggravation and the but that's me.
So if we were to go to a world where we conserved resources but made sure everybody got enough, how would we do a food distribution system?
There's too many working, implemented parts to go ahead and get a simple answer on that.
Okay, let's break it easier then. How are you going to feed the cities?
I think everybody should be independent upon their own, and I don't want to live in a city. I don't even want to be around or close to a city.
Okay.
So not my circus, not my monkey. If I had the ability, I'd be growing everything for myself. And then if there was like somebody up the road who was growing something and we could exchange and barter. I've lived a lot of my life in barter and exchange. Some of my best things have happened through barter and exchange. So...
yeah, I think a cooperative of some sort requires cooperation.
Usually.
I looked into a Mondragon cooperative from the Basque region of Spain, and I liked what I saw with their apprenticeship programs and their true training of people to have skills. But the only skill that's rewarded by the system right now is the ability to make money. And the only way to make money is to con somebody else out of it. So it's not a game we want to play at all.
Well, it just did. That's where it goes with how much do you think life is worth? And what is your value upon the money that you have worth? Because I don't spend over my allotted amount, and then I do find ways of creating other resources. So it's not like it has control over me. I have control over it. And when we can make that differentiation, then more things would work better in a certain favor. And that's another reason why I couldn't lie. They're killing us through products, through all kinds of things, and we're just willingly going and paying hard-earned money for it. Or easy-earned money, however you want to consider your cash flow. And then here, you better use a debit card so they can track every step. No, thank you. Yeah, we just...
Flow.
Pardon?
I turned off cash flow. That made it much easier.
But you were remedied to the point of where you can allocate that. I didn't want to get a cell phone. I didn't want to get a bank account. But I had no choice. That was the only way I could process any kind of other physical support, because all life, you have to have money. Not all 3D life. Let me put it that way. Or at least manipulated societal concerned life.
Oh, why don't you just call it what it is and say death culture live?
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's very sad.
It is, but it's a mad world.
I went and found out, I think it was from you, 3% hydrogen peroxide kills mold.
Yes, ma'am.
So I started, so that's what I'm using in the toilet, besides baking soda and vinegar once a week.
Yep. And the byproduct of that are water and oxygen.
Oh, yay. Yay. It can be that simple and that reasonably priced without harming anything. We've been sold we're supposed to harm life. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm not paying to harm life to the best of my ability.
If I was paid to harm life, does that mean I have to go out and kick Izzy the Wonder Dog?
No, you better not.
Of course I better not. She's a 65-pound pit bull, and if I kick her, she'll bite me. Why would I want to do that?
Seriously. But, see, Izzy's a whole different story because we went to the fact that it's a truth.
Right.
Now, the illusion is the they would be the pit bull. And why should we not? Well, maybe I don't want to confront the pit bull. I want to sit down and pet it and, rub its belly if it needs it. You know what I mean? But, yes, the pit bull. And I love all dogs, so it's not a big deal to me.
And I just came outside to see what all the fuss was about, and there she is trying to rub a bug off her nose.
Oh, a tick or a bug?
I don't know what it was, but she had her nose in the dirt and was rubbing, and now she has decided that by acknowledging her, that means she can go inside, because I looked at her.
Oh, okay. Well, hey.
I'm standing outside, and she's inside, but I unhooked, and it's a gorgeous day out here.
I believe it.
It's as hot as I thought it was going to be, but then again, it's still AM.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be at the height of where it's going to get today. But they were supposed to, by my understanding, be planting hemp this morning. And I see a clean, clear field. So maybe that's supposed to be on Monday morning, which made a lot more sense to me when they said, and they're going to start the 1st. And I thought, why are they going to start the 1st? Why aren't they going to do it on a work schedule?
Well, maybe they're doing the greenhouse planting.
Oh, it's already there. The greenhouse has its starts, and they've been growing for months, and today's June 1st.
Right.
The object of having a crop is that you have to know how many days of sunlight your crop is supposed to get to go to full maturity, and make sure they get that many days. And to me, we're probably got plenty of time. I'm going to try and get my girls into the ground later today. But if it takes me till Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not too worried about it. The fact that it's already warm, but it's not too hot, I think I'm still going to postpone it because I think what I want to do is I want to take care of cleaning so that I can have visitors. Because right now, if a visitor came by, I would be embarrassed to take them inside. Not that everything's not clean, it's just all over the place because I use it and don't put it away. But now if I put everything away, I have a question of whether I'd ever find it again.
I get the drift totally. But my mess is all organized, so I don't consider it an issue. But I get it totally what you're saying. That's right.
Well,
and so when somebody... Pardon?
It normally wouldn't be a problem, but in the case where I have visitors, I need space for the visitor to be.
That's the thought. Yes, it is. Okay.
So how much time do we still have on this show?
It looks like 15 minutes.
Oh.
To the top of the hour.
Yeah, if I didn't know that we had already taken a break, I'd think we were still in the first hour. It has been flying again.
There you are.
Yes, that's how things work. They go flying. My tomato plant is gone.
Whoa.
Oh, it's on the ground.
Oh.
It's still okay.
Has it been windy?
I'm more thinking that it probably got knocked over by a cat than a wind. Especially since there's a bunch of other plants there that are marijuana plants the same size. It could also be that it was top heavy and too close to the edge.
Mm-hmm. And that dog is probably not light when it walks up the steps, right?
Yeah, the dog was irrelevant to the tomato plant on the ground. But they could be linked, you never know. Somehow everything is linked, however it's linked, and I've been really struggling with how time works and how timelines work. And whereas you said there were 10, I think that means that there must still be 3 more hidden from where the perspective is at. Because I've come to the conclusion that there's 13 of the little buggers. There's a master timeline, and there's a micro timeline, and those are the 2 limits. And then everywhere in between is a different fractal of itself expressed at different scales. So at one scale, there's like billions and billions of humans. And then on another scale, there's like trillions and trillions of humans. And then on another scale, there's quadrillions and quadrillions of humans. But whatever scale it is, they're all proportioned onto Earths that have 24-hour days and things that the people are trying to do on the planet to figure out morphologies for other Earths.
Okay.
I'm looking around and looking at some of the trees grow, and I'm noticing that I've got in the trees right where I'm at 2 big boluses on the trees that are dead that are going to need to be taken down this year. Not a single leaf on them, and as soon as it gets too dry, they'll break off because there's no bark on one of them, and they're tipped over, and it's a weight distribution thing.
Yes, bigger pot unless you're putting it in the ground, and then you have to have little poles to hopefully support it up. My maters aren't doing real well. I grew them over the winter inside, but putting them outside.
Yeah, I just got one at the food bank on Wednesday, and so they were giving them away, but only 1 pepper and 1 mater per person. And I've grown potatoes before, but I'm not too keen on how the potatoes grow. And if I wanted to grow potatoes, I could find some with eyes and just throw them in the ground.
Right. Preferably around the compost. I'm amazed that you haven't had some come up, because I would just throw the ones that were growing in the house near the compost, and they came up really well. Nice little taters on the side of the house for a while there, but then people who come and do the yard work, I mean, everything is so tight and anal sometimes around here. It's like, gosh, this isn't a Better Homes and Gardens. This is a living house of how many people in it. Because our stuff just gets thrown away because the landlord doesn't think it should belong wherever it was left for that moment or so, instead of asking anybody. So,
no, and in fact, one of the landlord-tenant things that's just broken is how it works in agreement, because the entire contractual arrangement is programmed and dictated by people who have no say in the outcome of how it works. So it's set off as an adversarial agreement before it even starts. And if you're a tenant, the landlord's always a crook. And if you're a landlord, the tenants always leave your place destroyed. And so those are preconditions that no matter how good you do, never quite meet up, because that's the way we've been taught.
no, I just think that the environment and the medications people are on, et cetera, that they just can't look to the common sense of the situation behind the reality that so many people have lost respect. I mean, I'll stand there and hold the door open for a man or a woman. It doesn't matter to me. It's like, come on, you're coming in. I'll hold it for you. No big deal off of, hey, or just a smile or something. I mean, we've forgotten what it's like to be unconditional with love, and trying to make life easy for someone makes it easy for yourself. At least in my world.
I don't think it's easy for myself. If I wanted to make life easy for myself, I'd weigh 20 pounds more and I wouldn't get any work done. I'd rather not make things easy for me. I'd rather make myself work at doing things that I want. That way I want to do what I do.
Well, then you're putting a descriptive assumption about what is easy or not. I mean, it's not easy for me to do the goose pull, but I have found ways and means to get it done. Get her done.
Yep, and as Kermit says, it's easy being green.
What? What'd you say?
I said, as our friend Kermit says, it's not easy being green either.
Oh.
So you got to take everything with a grain of salt. But it doesn't mean the grain of salt can't be 5 blocks by 5 blocks long. I mean, sometimes people fib at you and sometimes people tell you the truth, but you got to know when it doesn't sound reasonable, it's not likely to be so. And every so often you find that you misjudged and something that you thought wasn't so was real and you missed out on something. But if you accept everything at face value and then throw it away when it's not real anymore, you at least get the best of everything initially. And sometimes that's the best it ever has to offer.
Yeah, because we're only in control of how we perceive it, right?
Yep. And you're always in the now, so you're not going to change what you got. But on some earth somewhere else, it changed and you got what you wanted because you had conceived that you could do that. And so you just got to figure out which temporal scale you're working on and be happy with the results on the scale that you're working. Too many people do things on one scale and expect results on another scale. And it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's amazing how those scales could be off, right?
Yep. And so sometimes you got to go back to musical scales and just remind yourself that it goes do, re, mi, and not me, me, me.
Well, but we only need... Need is another state of mind.
Yes. What did Dylan say? We all need someone we can lean on.
Exactly.
But there's not too much that we need that we can't manufacture. And if we set our mind to desiring something and then kick back, it shows up. It's all a grand illusion, and when you learn to be an illusionist, you have fun playing the game. And so I'm not upset by anything that's happening. I'm watching and laughing at the ride, but a lot of folks are attacking other folks. Like you saw, did you get to read that article that I sent you on our buddy Mr. Steele?
No.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's not worth it, but they're in slander mode, and if they can't get their pound of flesh, they'll just destroy his ability to get his pound of flesh.
It's too late, because he's more righteous than a all kinds of people. Even David Icke brought up Mark Steele. And
really?
Yeah. And I don't deal with bullshit well, even though I'm a bull. So I can tell really right away to a degree, and then I see where it goes. And Lenny, I won't let somebody who's out to try to hurt somebody else come over the airways.
Okay. That tells me that you're agreeing with Mark enough to know that he's talking serious and he knows what he's talking about. And that's always been the impression that I got from him.
Well, Bridgette's the one who introduced me. We did our first show together, Bridgette and I and Mark Steele. That's where we first got him for Revolution Radio and that. She's a good go-getter. I love Bridgette. She is just one of those ones I would trust too in a foxhole, or whatever you call it. All right, we're out of here. Thank you all. Thank you, Lenny. Don't forget we're listener supported.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Welcome to Revolution Radio, where you, the listeners, are in charge. Here at Revolution Radio, we present 48 broadcast hours of news and information each and every day. Revolution Radio never sleeps. Revolution Radio is worldwide and borderless information. Revolution Radio is also commercial-free. Revolution Radio is supported 100% by you, the listeners. And that's why we appeal to you to donate and support this station and its expenses. You can support us in many available options like archive subscriptions, our seed pack selections, or even my woodworking store. And we also even have Revolution Radio's swag at the Revolution Radio Zazzle store, in which you can get t-shirts, coffee cups, even a baby onesie. Or you can just plain donate to the cause. We cannot continue without your support, and your support is what helps pay the bills. So please, if you wish us to continue, please stop by our station support page and drop a dime on us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank or all the